Hey, good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday to you. Tim from Untitled Trading coming at you with this week's stocks to watch for trading and investing, as well as the market overview. I'm not going to go through every single sector, just the ones that really kind of stand out to me and could be at interesting areas. IBB, I think, is looking pretty interesting as we consolidate near an area of price resistance. Looking for a potential breakout follow through. Did consolidate a little bit here after a big run. It has had a big run, and I think that is something to keep in mind as we test this area of resistance. But it does look as though maybe we could get some follow through. IWM again at an area of resistance, flagging out a little bit after a big move higher. Let's see what happens this week. I'd like to see us hold on to the 158 area. If that doesn't hold, then possibly we're coming back down to test the 50 and 200 day moving averages. IYT transportation pulled back a little bit after failing to break above this trend line here. See if maybe we continue to pull back, maybe possibly test the 50 or 200 day moving average. Let's see what else we've got going on here. QQQs, so we broke above a little trend line resistance here. We're consolidating. We may need more time to consolidate. But, testing all time highs in the Qs, pretty impressive. SMH is another one that has had a very impressive move. Broke above this trend line resistance, now consolidating. Wouldn't be shocked if we were to see a bit of a pullback in semis. Did get some nice reports last week. Nvidia was one that actually reported good numbers, but wound up pulling back a little bit. Wouldn't be shocked if we were to see a pause in semis. S&P 500 coming up into a trend line as potential resistance. We'll see how that plays out next week. But, we've had a very big run. Can we continue to melt up? Absolutely. At some point, I think that we will get a dramatic pull. When that happens, I don't know. It may not be until after the first of the year. But we've had a very massive move in a very short period of time. We are testing all-time highs, and talked about this a couple of weeks ago about the fact that we could continue to just melt up. And when we get those highs, maybe we'll get some people that get FOMO and start jumping into the market at precisely probably the wrong time to be jumping into the market, which could lead to some irrational exuberance, right? And we get a blow off top, and then shortly thereafter get some kind of a dramatic pullback. So we don't have any volatility whatsoever. TVIX, UVXY, both dropping. These things could be doing reverse splits in the near future. And ironically, when TVIX and UVXY, when they do the reverse splits, that's typically about when all of a sudden those things get a little action. So keep that in mind. If you see reverse split announcements or TVIX and UVXY, that could be after the split. That could be the time to actually jump into those things. So USO kind of consolidating a little bit. I'm not, it's been a very tough sector. It's one of the most beaten down sectors. USO, oil and energy. And I'm still not crazy about the sectors themselves. There are a couple of interesting looking stocks within the sectors, but the sector has just been really difficult to invest in if you're looking for some kind of value play or long-term holds. But short-term bounces, there have been some opportunities there. I think right now there are better other sectors that look more compelling. Aerospace and defense coming up into an area of potential price resistance. Could have a double top formation coming here. Now, if we take this high out, I'd like to actually see us consolidate, pull it in maybe a little flag pattern here, and then take that out. That would be pretty cool. But aerospace defense has had a pretty nice run in a very short period of time. At the very least, would like to see some consolidation. Home builders still kind of consolidating a little bit. Got some home builders that reported earnings last week, and one of them in particular, Beazer Homes, had a nice pop off of earnings. It looks like it wants to consolidate, but that could be a name to maybe keep an eye on. BZH is the symbol, but wouldn't be shocked if we were to pause a little bit in the home builders. XLB Building Materials, same thing, coming up into potential trendline resistance. Overhead has had a pretty amazing run. Wouldn't be shocked if we were to pull back and maybe test an area of support right around, I don't know, 59.50 or so. XLE, right? So we just talked about how the energy names are still, I mean, they're still in a downward trend. Testing the 50-day as potential support, pulling back a little bit from this trend line resistance. Like I said, I think there's better opportunities out there. Financials clearly breaking out, have had a huge run, flagging a bit. Would not be surprised if it were to if that sector were to flag a bit more, maybe pull back, test the top of this trend line, test the 50-day moving average. Financials have had an amazing run, but might look at for some type of pullback there. Industrials broke through an area of price resistance. Nice flat top breakout. There is a gap to fill on the daily. Actually held up fairly well on Friday, but needs time to consolidate and build up some energy in my mind. But the space is looking actually pretty darn impressive. And let's see, Xlp Consumer Staples have been consolidating for quite a while, holding up pretty well actually. And one name that kind of stuck is in my head in the consumer staples space is Kraft Heinz. Had a beautiful flag forming on the daily and actually kind of broke down a little bit last week. But the space itself has been holding up fairly well, and Kraft Heinz, I think, on an area on a pullback to potential price support could be interesting as a swing or long-term hold play. So take a look at that one. XLV Healthcare breaking out. Probably one of the more exciting sectors out there is XLV as it breaks through resistance. It has been one of the most beaten up sectors, and it looks like it's coming back to life. So that sector could be a really good one to pay close attention to. Could be some names within that space that perform extremely well in the near future. So keep an eye on healthcare. Consumer discretionary, kind of consolidating, recent double top. We'll see how consumer discretionary does over the next couple of weeks or so, but kind of looks like we're coiling and we're hanging out around the 50-day. Let's see what happens. If we can take out that resistance overhead, you could get another run for consumer discretionary, but it's definitely in consolidation mode. XOP oil and exploration broke back below the 50-day moving average. Not crazy about that space there. And XRT. So, big week for XRT, and actually had a couple of names that have had some nice moves off of earnings. And we've got a lot of earnings being reported this week that it could impact that space. And it's got a reverse head and shoulders pattern on the daily. If we get some good numbers, maybe this space gets a little action. Expect some resistance somewhere in the 46 to 47 area. Take that out. Could get very interesting for retail. I don't like to trade retail names, but that doesn't mean the space can't do well. So that is where we're at on that. So let's take a look at the economic data coming out next week that could impact markets. Monday, we've got home builders index, we've got housing starts on Tuesday, building permits, FOMC minutes on Wednesday. That could impact the markets. We get weekly jobless claims on Thursday, existing home sales, leading economic indicators. We get market manufacturing PMI and consumer sentiment index. So a couple of things that could impact the markets, nothing all that dramatic. Maybe the FOMC minutes. We'll see what happens there. But nothing all that dramatic. I think, China and the trade deal, that could impact the markets. If things really fall apart, I think that would probably not be a good thing. So we'll have to see how it plays out. And then let's see, we've got earnings. We've got quite a few, Chinese stocks that are reporting. There's a couple on the list of stocks to watch that I happen to like the technical setups. I think they could be interesting to keep an eye on. But there are a lot of other names, Home Depot, Kohl's, TJX, Target, Lowe's, right? Those are all going to be big for the retail space. Ross, Nordstrom's. A couple other names. Stone, I think, is interesting. It's not on my list, but I think it's one to maybe keep an eye on. It's got a decent looking daily. Let's see who else was on my list that I thought was fairly interesting. I think that's it. I mean, Intuit, that could be interesting. Splunk, right? I mean, there are some fairly interesting names reporting this week. A lot of retail, and not exactly my favorite space, but let's see what happens next week. Let me go ahead and hop right into the list of stocks to watch. And this is the full list, including the list that I would send out normally to the pro members. So we have quite a few names on this list, about 33 of them. So I'm going to hop right into it and try to blast through it. So last week, I mentioned in last week's video that the pot space could be an interesting space for potential rebound because, snapback plays, because it was beaten up so bad, and we had several companies reporting, and it actually wound up being a really bad week for the sector. Now, was it a flush week? I don't know. There could be more pain ahead, but there could be some names that are getting unfairly beaten up and could be looking for some kind of a snapback opportunity. So I found this interesting. Kern, which is a cannabis play, pretty nice volume and pretty nice bounce, breaking through a trend line, coming up and testing the 50-day moving average. Now we've broken this downward trend. This thing has had big runs in the past, or had a big run in the past. It's been in a downward trend for a long time, breaking that trend line, coming up to the 50-day, testing it. Could be a red to green move. Day trading opportunity if you get continued volume in the name, but the sector really does not look all that compelling. Matter of fact, I just read an article here. Hold on one second. And I'm going to post this article in the free chat room at Discord. You can read it there if you want, but it's this article here. Pot companies reel from a week of bloodletting. I don't know when is the bloodletting done, right? I mean, we've had some pretty dramatic pulls in that space. I'm pasting this thing right now, or trying to. Putting that in the chat room right now. Okay. So pretty interesting article. on the pot space. Definitely think it's worth reading. But this particular one was bucking the market. So let's see what happens next week. See if it gets any follow through. See if there's any kind of a day trading opportunity in that name. LASR, it's semiconductor name. I think these guys reported earnings last week and got a pretty nice little pop in laser. It's breaking through a long-term trend line, right, to the upside, broke through the 200-day at an area of potential price resistance, okay? So what I'm looking for in this one, and this could be a potential, I mean, this got a fairly small float. Let me actually double check that. Hold on a second. LASR. $31 million shares in the float. Nah, they got about 7% short interest. You got $138 million in cash, $66,000 in debt, and they're burning through about $700,000. So I mean, not pretty decent looking fundamental picture, at least from what I can see, just a quick glance. So looking for a potential red to green on this one, right? Pull back maybe to 1950, between 1950, 1860 to the 200-day. See if maybe that is an area of a zone of potential price support. Maybe a red to green move. I mean, this thing had a nice pop, consolidated, and then popped. And I want to make sure that this did move off of earnings. Hold on one second here. Let me get this. Yeah, they reported revenues 43 million, gross margin 29.6% for the third quarter. So that was actually, they reported that 13 days ago. Let me see. Okay, and they completed the acquisition of Neutronics for 17.5 million in cash. So it had some news. I like the trend line break, right? I like the break back over the 200-day. So a couple of things that I like about it. So, like I said, maybe this 1775, this could be an interesting area of support, right? If you wanted to take this maybe as a swing type play. But definitely worth keeping an eye on. See if it gets any follow through. Only traded 1 million shares on Friday, so it looks like this thing can trade pretty thin. So definitely do not chase it, but at least have it on the radar. Onvo. So look, for the pro members, I always have stuff, even penny stocks that are potential trading opportunities, right? Onvo actually had been bottom basing for quite a while. Broke out, not sure why it broke, on pretty good volume. It's been flagging out and broke again on Friday. It's a little penny play. Could be looking at a pop up into the 200-day moving average. 62 cents is an area of potential resistance, right? Maybe going to have some resistance at 50 cents. Nice, round number, 50 cents. See if that acts as resistance. Take that out. I think you get 62 cents. Just looking for potential, short-term trading opportunity. Maybe a high-risk swing. I'm not sure when these guys report earnings. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can. Oh, it looks like maybe I'm not sure if they reported earnings or not. So I don't know if they have earnings coming up. You might want to check that out before you go jumping into Onvo. But it does have an interesting setup on the daily, right? Nice little flag. It broke through this trend line here, flagging out right at the 100-day, above the 50-day. Got a rising 50 days. So it's compelling for a potential scalp, high risk swing. All right, I wouldn't go all in on that bad boy, but could be worth watching for a day trading opportunity. MTNB. So AMRN had a very nice move off of their approval, and MTNB can move in sympathy. So actually broke through an area of resistance, the 97 cents, $1, stayed above the $1 holla. Got a little bit of volume on Friday, right? It was consolidating, had a little flag pattern here at the 200-day. So potentially, if AMRN continues to rip, this one could move in sympathy with it. You're likely going to have some resistance there at about $1.12. Take out $1.12 with any kind of conviction. I think your next area of resistance is about $1.25. Could even go up and test 140 to 150 area. Worth having on the radar for a little day trading opportunity. I think these guys, they did an offering at $1.10 in March. I think they've got cash good enough until probably the second half of 2020. So I don't know. Could be a nice opportunity there, especially if AMRN continues to move higher, and AMRN is also on this list. So RDNT, big flat top breakout on the daily, being added to, I think, S&P 600 or something to that effect. Breaking out, and let's move to the monthly. This is all-time highs for RDNT. So you're in blue skies with this thing. So, look, I'm not suggesting to buy it up here at $17.99, but what was resistance could act as support. Look for a pullback into the 16 to 1650 area, 1580 to 1650 area. Could be a support zone, could be an ideal opportunity or for a swing entry, and getting involved in something where resistance now potentially becomes support. You've got a rising 50-day, rising 200-day, nice flat top breakout. You got a reverse head and shoulders pattern on the daily. There's a lot going on with this chart that I happen to like. RDNT, let me see what we've got for a float. This has got 38 million shares in the float for RDNT. Doesn't have a big short interest. They've got 37 million in cash. They got a lot of debt. They have really good positive cash flow, $111 million, but they do have a lot of debt, $1.19 billion in debt. So, debt is concerning, so keep that in mind. But this has got a pretty good looking setup for potentially a swing opportunity on a pullback to an area of potential price support. AMRN, so right at resistance, right? We've been trading within this box, within this channel for quite a while. Right at that resistance off of that positive news. Could this act as resistance and get a pullback? Absolutely, that's possible. Call pullback maybe into the $19.50, $20, $18 to $20 range. Could be an interesting area of potential support. It is getting a little extended. It's out of the upper Bollinger Band. Had quite a nice reversal candle though, right? This thing pulled back. At least it's showing that it pulled back to 18. I don't know if it actually did. Maybe this is a wacky candle, but what a pullback and reversal. So maybe we consolidate here and then take out 24 bucks. Let me see what that does. That is not all-time highs for this stock. On a longer time frame, we've got resistance at $42. We've got resistance at 22. We've got resistance right here, actually. Hold on. This 2450 is kind of a big spot to try and get through. So I wouldn't be surprised if we were to consolidate there a bit. Maybe, build up a little energy before we try to take that area out. It is up several days in a row. So, maybe this takes a little bit of a breather, but definitely worth still keeping an eye on. CVET. So this is a long-term trend line break, right? So let me hold on a second here. We broke through this trend line with pretty good conviction. That's a weekly time frame. Let's take a look at the daily. All right, so there is a big gap to fill on the daily. Not suggesting that that gap is going to fill, but it is possible. Now, this is up. This is roughly the third day of the move right into potential price resistance. So I wouldn't be surprised if we were to pull back here, maybe take a breather. 1250, 1160 to 1250. Maybe that's an area of potential price support for a bounce. If this takes out 15 with conviction and volume, could be a day trading opportunity. But worth having this on the radar. I would much rather get this thing on a pullback to 12, like I said, anywhere from 1150, maybe up to 1275, somewhere in that area. Pull back, find support, pull back on lower volume, find some support, and then maybe we get a bounce and take out this 15, 20, $15 with some authority, but definitely worth having on the radar. Now, CVET, I did notice, now this is software application, and that has been a sector that was leading for a long time, a lot of names within that space, and those names have recently come under pressure, but I did notice through this week's scans that several of the software application stocks were bouncing. Now that these may be just dead cat bounces, I don't know. We'll have to see. But this has definitely got an interesting look and worth having on the radar. Full disclosure, I did take a little position in this on Friday. Big date coming up with what was it? The FCC. I think in December. I think December 12th. Whether it'll be a public or private auction for C-band. This thing got crushed because apparently they might be moving away from private auction to a public auction, and that would take longer, and I don't know. So, look, this is a very speculative deal. Analyst that covers the stock, I think it was JP Morgan, downgraded the stock from a 32 price target to a 22 price target. And after that news came out and the thing got crushed, it's completely out of the lower Bollinger Band, or was. Got a little bounce on Friday. Maybe this consolidates here, could bear flag and break lower if the news winds up being negative for these guys. But just as a dead cat bounce, snapback play, I did take it in the 13 and change range. And just a small piece. See if maybe we get a pop back up into the 1750 area. But worth keeping an eye on this one for a snapback bounce play. APRE, recent IPO. I mean, it's got a fantastic looking daily, man. Consolidated and broke out. Now, we are second day of the move, second day of the breakout. Maybe you get a third day of the move, red to green type play, looking for, $30 roll, $30 holla. But tough to play these when you don't have a lot of historical technical data, right? So just looking for a potential scalp opportunity in APRE, but pretty nice looking setup there on the daily. ENDP, so we were watching this one actually pretty closely. I think a couple of guys might have gotten a little trade opportunity out of this, but this is a stair step and higher, right? So they reported earnings weren't that great. They pulled back. It's testing the $4 holla as potential support. Got a little bit of a bounce on Friday. Stochastic starting to curl up. MACD kind of looks like it might start curling or going to the positive side. Worth keeping an eye on it. 50-day moving average seems to be acting as support. $4 holla seems to be acting as support. Maybe a potential swing on this one. Right, pull back. I think 430 to 415 to 430 could be an interesting area for an entry. For a little bit of a swing, maybe take out the $5 holla, get a pop up into 530 to 550 area, 200-day moving average. But worth keeping an eye on ENDP. And then you've got a great area to trade against, right? So you want to put your stop at 380, just below $4 holla. The risk reward, I think, is fairly decent in ENDP. AUDC, let's see, fairly small float and testing, I believe, all-time highs. Just to make sure. Nope, it's not. I lied. I hate when I do that. It is testing a pretty big area of price resistance, $24. If we can take out $24 with conviction, this could have some room to run. I kind of like this thing more as a swing or long-term hold type play. It's got a reverse, it's got a nice cup and handle type formation here. I really like the look of this quite a bit. Maybe it pulls back to $22, test that area of support. What was resistance, maybe that becomes support for a bounce. Maybe we drift back down and, kind of test this 22 area, but that could be the area to get involved for more of a swing type play. Work, Slack, right, has not been a very successful IPO. We're up 4 days in a row. We are breaking through this trend line. We're coming up into potential resistance here at the 50-day moving average, but might be having a longer-term trend line break, and this one could get interesting if it can take the 50-day out. I think worth keeping an eye on. Maybe an entry in the 2150 area could be interesting on work for a swing, but I do like the way it's taken out that longer term trend line. XGN, another recent IPO that's just got a good looking setup on the daily, right? Did try to pop on Friday, didn't get the follow through, but got a nice little flag pattern here, and you've got an area to trade against, this 18.25, let's call it $18, right? 18.10. This could be an interesting area, maybe to take it as a little swing, looking for a flag breakout. Not sure when these guys report, but I just like the setup on the daily. Kind of got a cup with handle formation here, and if it takes out 21.50, that would put it in all-time highs. So worth keeping an eye on XGN. FRO shipping. I think we do have one shipper that's reporting this week. I think it's Starbulk, or I think that was it. But shipper's kind of interesting, right? Stochastics curling up. MACD looking like it might go positive. This is trying to hold on to the 50-day moving average. And it's been stair-stepping up. So shippers in general, I think maybe keep an eye on that space. This is one possibly to keep an eye on. I think this is a foreign stock. It's an ADR, yeah. So that's why you see these little gap ups. Harder to trade those. Maybe the better one to keep it on your radar is NAT. It has a pretty nice looking setup on the daily here. Pulled back to the 50 EMA and bounced, flagging out. Looks like MACD is about to go positive. MACD histo and stochastics are curling up. Pulled back maybe to support here at 315, which was resistance, and getting a little bit of a bounce. So let's see what happens. See if we get any kind of follow through on NAT, potential high risk swing or day trading opportunity. LTHM, recent IPO that has not fared well, but do have kind of a reverse head and shoulders pattern on the daily, potential flat top breakout. They reported earnings that disappointed, but the stock has actually been holding up fairly well. So, consolidating below the 200-day moving average, looking for it to maybe go up and test that, even potentially take it out. So LTHM could be a swing, could be a day trade with some significant volume, worth at least having on the radar. RVNC, another long-term trendline break that has been consolidating, and it's in the biotech space. You got the 50 that just crossed above the 200-day. Pretty interesting setup here on the daily. There's a lot to like about this chart. I had this little shakeout here, and now it's consolidating at an area of potential price support. You've got an area to trade against, this 1475 or so, call it 1450 to 1420, whatever. Break below 1420. Maybe that would be your stop, but I kind of like the look of this thing. It's flirting with the $16 holla. Potential entry in the $15 area, right? 15.20 to $15 could be an interesting zone. I just like the look of this daily, and if it takes out 16 with conviction, with some volume, could be a day trading opportunity with an intraday setup. BZUN, they report earnings this week. This is got an interesting pattern on it. $40 seems to be holding as support. You break through this trend line with any kind of conviction, I think maybe you get a 50 test in BZUN. This could be a really good quarter for them because, what was it? Singles Day, right? Singles Day just happened. Maybe those results won't show in this quarter, but they'll show in the next quarter. So their guide could be good. Definitely worth keeping an eye on BZUN for a potential trading opportunity. Now, keep in mind, though, if we get any kind of negative press on China and the trade deal, BZUN could wind up pulling back. So, but I kind of like the setup on it. And they report, let me see when they report. They report Thursday before the open. So, this could maybe get some action into the earnings report, but definitely worth having on the radar. Cldr, kind of a nice consolidation here. This is another software application name that is in consolidation mode, right? Cldr looking for a potential break out of this coil here and try to take out the 200-day moving average. It's been consolidating for quite a while, and a break over the 200-day, I think, could send this bad boy. So, breaking a longer-term trend line, right, and has been basing for quite a while. I think it's worth having on the radar. I'm not sure when they report, but I like the technical setup on this one. Billy reports, let's see, when does Billy report? They report Monday after the close. And we do have kind of a nice looking setup here. If you can take out the $17 holla, I think potentially we get an $18.50 to $19 test on Billy. Broke this trend line here, back above the 200-day moving average. Nice flag pattern just above the 200-day. Although it did the same thing over here, and then wound up breaking down. So keep that in mind, right? I mean, this is a big spot for it to take out. If it can take it out with conviction, could be a nice trading opportunity. And Billy, MAXR, Maxer Communications. So, look, this has been a turnaround play that I did play that I'm looking to potentially get back in. They announced their pricing of their notes after the close on Friday. I'm undecided on how the street is going to interpret it. Looks like they're paying a little bit higher than interest than it was expected, and they are get funding less than was expected. So, a couple of things there. Look, I would love to see Maxer pull back to the 860 area to $8 area. I don't know that it's, I'm not saying it's going there, but I would love to see that happen because that's where I would like to aggressively jump back in. May not get that opportunity. May pull back to 10 to 960. I might start to dip the toe there with the anticipation that it could pull all the way back to $8. And if that happened, I would be actually looking to add. And what I'm looking at is I'm looking at trend line and potential price support. Nice round number at 8. But this is a long-term turnaround play. I think now that they've got this financing in place, these guys can focus on their Legion program and some other things that they've got going on. But I like Maxer as a long-term hold turnaround play. So watching that one next week, see how that news is, how the market reacts to the news that they had after the close. CSTL testing all-time highs. Now up several days in a row, so maybe we get a pullback, right? And maybe we pull back into, I don't know, $24 area. First, we look for this 28 to hold as support. If it doesn't, maybe we get a pullback to 24. Maybe we close this gap. I don't know. But I kind of like the look on the CSTL, and it looks like it's a recent IPO. Worth keeping an eye on. Kind of got a reverse head and shoulders pattern on the daily here, flirting with all-time highs. But it's up, 4 days in a row. So looking for it to take a little breather. But keeping an eye on that one. ZTO reports earnings. When did they report? Not sure when they report. I'm looking. Hold on. ZTO reports Tuesday or Monday after the close. Good looking setup on the daily, right? Big area that we're messing with here. I think that's all-time highs. It is all-time highs. Take that out. You're in blue skies. All right, so $23 is a big area, and it could move off of earnings. Now it's already had a nice run into earnings, into resistance. So if they disappoint, give a bad guide, we could see a decent pullback in ZTO. So, but worth having on the radar. ARDX, another biotech name that is testing an area of price resistance. If you can take out 650 with conviction, maybe we get some follow through here, but flirting with the 6 roll. And look at this. Actually, if you look at it here, it kind of already broke this long-term trend line, broke above it, broke through it, kind of pulled back, tested the top side of it, and is grinding higher. It's at an area of price resistance, so this is a pretty big spot that it's trying to get through. If it can get through 650, could be interesting. CALX, been watching this for a while as a potential turnaround play. They reported better than expected earnings, had a nice pop, had actually, I think it ran into those earnings. Now you're getting a potential golden cross with the 50 trying to break above the 200-day. Nice consolidation pattern. I would like to get this closer to $7. That ideally is my area of entry, $7. But I may not get that opportunity if it takes out the $8 hollow with conviction. Could be a nice trading opportunity. So I like this one for more of a long-term swing or hold. I would like it on a pullback to $7, but we'll see what happens. If it takes out 8, could be an interesting, just a day trading opportunity. BV, I think these guys report earnings. Nice, it's been trading within this channel. Takes out 19 with conviction and could get a pop up into $21 or so, maybe even up to 22 and change. But BV kind of been a nice consolidation for a while. See how it reacts. What is these guys report Brightview? They report Thursday before the open, so could be interesting after they report earnings. SEAC. I have been watching SEAC, activist investor, for quite a while. Missed a tremendous opportunity to jump in where the insiders were buying, and the thing broke out after earnings. It's been consolidating, broke out again on this week, and now looking for what was acting as resistance to act as support, pull back to 310 or so. See if that is holds as support. But I like this for a long-term hold potential turnaround story, and it could be breaking out again here. If it can take out 350, I think you get a forward test. But I would like to get this on a pullback to $3. What was acting as resistance to act as support. That's where I'd like to jump into it. Worth keeping an eye on. SEAC, THMO. Medical devices, these guys report this week. Where do they report? They report I'm looking. Oh, Thermogenesis. They report Tuesday after the close. And just looking at where it's at an area of potential support, right? What was acting as resistance potentially acts as support. Recent reverse split, so it's got a tiny float. If they report a decent number, I mean, you've got the 50, which is above the 200-day. It still remains the stock remains above the 200-day, below the 50-day, but this could be an interesting spot of potential support. So. Tiny floater, trades super thin, 35,000 shares. But if they report a good number and give a good guide, this thing could be in play. So worth having it on the radar for a trading opportunity. BDSI. I'm almost done, folks. But this is what happens when you get the full list of stocks to watch. BDSI, reported earnings. It had a beautiful setup on the daily. They reported earnings and it popped a little bit, but could not get any follow through. But it looks to me like 6 is really trying to hold as support. 595, 6. Maybe it consolidates a bit here. Let me go back. This is a big area of resistance on the longer term time frame. If we can take this out with some conviction, I think we're going up into the 8 and change range. So higher risk swing because of the fact that it's a biotech, but I like the way this thing is looking. If it were to pull back to $5.35 to $5 to $5.35, could be looking to take this as a swing. If it takes out 650 with some authority, could be looking for a day trade. But I am definitely keeping an eye on BDSI. SONO. Reports Sonos has got earnings on Wednesday after the close. Interesting spot, 15.20, right? Kind of got a little cup going on there and a little cup and handle. They report better than expected earnings. Maybe this thing breaks out over 15.20 with some conviction. Worth keeping an eye on. Sono for a trading opportunity. Score is another stock that has been on my radar for a while. Comscore, they reported better than expected earnings. This is a company that's had a lot of issues, legal issues. Former CEO is gone, but it's kind of got an interesting setup here. So actually, looking for a pullback to about 350. See if that acts as support. Could be an interesting spot to take it for a swing. Takes out $4 with conviction. Could be a day trading opportunity. Looking for a pop up into the potentially $4.50, $5 area. But I like this one more on a pullback to an area of price support for a potential swing, long-term hold type situation. PAYS pulled back, had some news on Friday. Pulled back, tested the 50-day or the 200-day moving average as support. Maybe look for a pullback into the $10 area, $9.85, $10. See if that acts as support for a bounce. I think it's caught a couple upgrades last week. But if this thing winds up taking out $9.85 with conviction, could be then a short. Taking out the 200-day and price support would not be a good thing technically. So, but worth keeping an eye on for a potential day trading opportunity. Hexo, looks like Hexo had some news, some negative news, but I think they came out and tried to clarify that they were in compliance, that there are no issues. Now, I'm not sure if they will succeed in that, but Hexo has been beaten up along with the whole, pot space, and it could be coming to an area of potential price support where it could find a bounce. So, just looking maybe for a dead cat bounce in Hexo. If it breaks through this area, it could be heading lower. I mean, it could be heading down to $1.25, maybe even $1 holla. So, not a good looking long term chart. That's the monthly right there, right? But at some point, I do think we are going to see a bounce back in these pot names, or some of the pot names. Maybe not all of them, but some of them. And maybe that's not until next year. But worth keeping an eye on the space. And that's it, folks. That is my entire list of stocks to watch for trading and investing. Hopefully you found some in there that might be right up your alley. That's it. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. If you're interested, come check out Alpha Wolf Trading and look to sign up as a pro member. That would be pretty awesome. We've got a great group of people. But that's about it. Good luck trading next week. Let's see how next week works out. And that's it. Have good luck trading, and I'll see you all next week.